It's official. My baby doesn't take a morning nap anymore. If your baby is getting big like mine and their sleep is starting to digress a bit, it might be time to drop them down to one nap a day. Oh, speaking of naps, you're ready for a nap, aren't you? You tell them. So tired. So tired. Hello, I'm Cassie from Custom Built Parenthood, and today we're talking about when and how to drop a baby's morning nap. I just did this with my now 17-month-old baby, and it really was a big transition. It took some time, it took a lot of effort and focus, so I wanted to just give you a few pointers today, talk about when a baby might be ready to drop their morning nap, how to go about doing that, at least how I go about doing that, and then as always, stick around to the end. I always like to give you guys a few extra tips. So let's just dive right in. We're going to talk about when to drop a baby's morning nap. I have a book. Am I a total nerd for having an actual book to read out of? You can let me know in the comments. I will link this in the description. It's my favorite sleep book that I'm pretty much always talking about. It says at 12 months of age, 82% of children have 2 naps, but by 15 months of age, 43% of children are taking 2 naps. So in 3 months, like, the numbers are dropped in half of the amount of babies taking 2 naps a day, which means typically somewhere between 12 months and 15 months, a large majority of babies are ready to make this transition. However, anytime between 12 and 24 months is totally normal, and you're going to be paying a closer attention to their behavior and sleeping patterns as opposed to their age. It's really not something that you're going to be checking like, oh, they're 15 months now, let's drop that first nap. You want to just wait until you have a reason to do that. So if your baby's taking 2 solid naps every day, they're ready for bed, they're sleeping great through the night, don't rock the boat, guys. Don't rock the boat. Let them get the sleep that they need. Don't rush it. Do it based on their sleeping patterns. So, signs that your baby might be ready to drop this nap, because it is important to kind of learn when a baby's ready to drop this second nap. You're going to be looking for struggling to fall asleep for their afternoon nap, taking really short naps. So like if both of their naps are now less than an hour, that would definitely be an indication it might be time. If they're not quite ready to fall asleep at their normal bedtime, that could be a sign, as well as they're not sleeping through the night anymore. So they're either waking up in the night or waking up super duper early in the morning. All of those can lead to you realizing it might be time to drop to just 1 nap. Okay, so if your baby is showing some signs that they might be ready to drop from 2 naps to 1, let's talk about how long this transition can take. As I mentioned, it took me a while to get my baby to the point where he was just taking 1 nap. That's because pretty across the board, it should take about 2 to 3 weeks to get your baby to just 1 nap a day. Any kind of sleep transition is really hard on babies. It takes just a slow, gradual progression to get to that point. In my experience, the slower you do it, the smoother it will go. So it's not something you're gonna rush and just do overnight and just never give them a morning nap again. There's definitely a process to it. Also be aware of any other factors that can come into play during this transition. So if your baby's teething, I will link a video here if you're dealing with that, or sickness, these things can really throw it off, and it's best probably to just hit the pause button, give your baby some extra rest, go back to having morning naps for those few days, and then start over or get back on track. Just give your baby extra rest if they're needing it, and don't worry that that's gonna cause problems. You can always kind of pick that back up where you left off. Okay, so we're ready to get to how to drop a baby's morning nap, and before I just dive right in, I want to liken this to making dough. Are there any bakers out there or anyone that's tried to make bread? You find a recipe and there's always going to be that disclaimer of get it to the right consistency, add enough flour until it's the right consistency. There's not really a standard this many cups of flour, this much water, perfect bread every time. You really have to just get a feel for the dough. You're adding flour bit by bit until it feels right. So it's kind of like that. I feel like there's not just one standard formula of do this on this day and do this on this day. It honestly just kind of depends on your baby, and you just need to be aware of their cues and kind of taking in all the factors and adjusting. So I know that's kind of frustrating. I'm the type of person that starts panicking if somebody's just winging it in the kitchen because how do I replicate that? But I will definitely just give you an example, I guess, and kind of give you that formula. But just know it's more important to watch your baby and pay attention to what your baby's telling you they need. Okay, so first I'm just going to walk you through what I just did with my baby because I feel like that will give this all some context and kind of give you a reference point of what I'm talking about. So up until 16 months of age, my baby was napping at 9 a.m. and at 1 p.m. every single day, usually at least 2 hours. Once he was about 14 months though, I started decreasing his morning nap because he was every once in a while struggling to fall asleep for his afternoon nap or starting to have a little bit of problems at night. And so I realized he needed less sleep, so I shortened his nap in the morning. So I would wake him up after an hour and a half. For a while I was doing that. After an hour and a half I would go in and wake him up from his nap and then lay him down at normal time in the afternoon. And then after a while he was ready for just an hour nap in the morning. So I decreased it a half an hour more. So I would wake him up after an hour. That lasted for another several weeks, maybe a month. And then it was definitely obvious that now he was ready to just be done. I mean, he was always tired in the morning, don't get me wrong, but he was really struggling with his afternoon nap or with his bedtime or with his waking time in the morning. Like, just sleep in general was not going as great. So I decided, okay, it's time to make this transition. So what I did at 16 months old, so I had already decreased his morning naps. Now I was ready to officially drop that first nap. And that's now what I'm going to kind of tell you the formula, maybe like a general formula to help you make this transition. So I would say day 1 and day 2 of the transition, you're trying to extend their morning waking time. So the goal isn't to skip the first nap, so like don't tuck them until 1, but the goal is just to bump it as late as your baby can tolerate without getting overtired. So probably what that looked like for my baby was 10 o'clock or maybe even 10:30. I would lay him down for his nap. This is gonna be their one nap of the day, so have that kind of expectation. So it should be a good like 2 to 3 hour nap ideally. Just bump it a little bit later, and this is their one nap, and then bedtime might need to be a little bit earlier because they might get tired a little bit sooner. That's day 1 and 2. Day 3, go back to normal schedule. Give them their morning nap at 9 a.m., let's say, and their afternoon nap at 1 p.m., bedtime normal. Days 4 and 5, maybe even 6, you're going to repeat the same thing from day 1 and 2. So extend that morning waking time, and the goal is that every day you're just extending it a little bit further. So maybe 10 minutes later or 15 minutes later until you're laying them down. Hit the pause button on this. The whole goal is, for me at least, was to get him to just have a single nap at 1 p.m. 1 p.m. is the quiet time for my other kids. It's what's convenient for me. It's after lunch. It's a pretty good nap time for a baby. So probably between noon and 1 probably is normal. So that's the goal. You're just bumping it, extending it till you get to your goal. So days, what are we on? 1, 2, 3. So 4, 5, and 6, extend that nap. And then what are you going to do on day 7? Back to normal schedule. 9 p.m. morning nap, 1 p.m. afternoon nap. The reason for kind of backtracking is to let them catch up on sleep. They're going to be getting progressively tired. It's easy for them to skip a nap here or there, but as you're doing it day after day after day, they're just going to get more and more tired, and bad sleep usually leads to worse sleep. So you're wanting to keep them rested, but you're just easing them into the new transition of just 1 nap a day. So day 7, back to normal, morning nap, afternoon nap, bedtime, and then we're going to repeat this whole cycle for another week or 2 weeks or maybe even 3 weeks until you feel like your baby's officially transitioned. So this gives you enough time to gradually be bumping that nap time later and later until you get to your target, and you're letting them catch up along the way as well. So that's the formula. Remember my disclaimer though, you're watching your baby. You're getting a feel for the dough, right? You're only adding as much flour as the dough needs. So you're only skipping the sleep that your baby can really handle to avoid being overtired. So if they need 2 days in a row of a morning nap, give them 2 days in a row. That's my approach anyway. It's not going to help anybody to have just such a fussy, cranky baby. You want them to be able to tolerate this transition. So ease them into it, take your time, and just get to that target point, and then you're finished. Okay, that was simpler to explain than I thought. Already on to the tips. First of all, try to avoid morning car rides and stroller rides just because it will probably put your baby to sleep. The whole goal is to be stretching this morning waking time without any cat naps or anything that's going to throw off your progress. So try to keep them engaged in something. That's another tip. Play with them, take them outside. They probably will be a little bit fussy. They want to go down for that nap probably, but your goal is to just try to keep them awake, keep them happy. Sit and play with them even if you normally wouldn't at that time. Just do something to help them through this kind of brutal transition learning. You just have to wait a bit and then you get your nap later. My other main tip is to just follow your baby's lead. I know I've said this a lot, but really try to pay attention to what they're needing. There is a bigger picture here, so their sleep in general, so nighttime sleep, their afternoon nap, are all factors to consider. So I'm not saying, oh, well, if they're tired in the morning, just lay them down. But really, you just have to be aware of what else might be going on. Like I said, the teething or a sickness or like a big life kind of hard day or something. Just be aware of those things and try to take those into account and just do what you think is best. If you are giving them extra naps in the morning, so even on the days that you're going back to giving them naps in the morning, I still would recommend waking them up after 1 hour. For my baby, that's still enough for him to wake up pretty happy and pleasant, like he definitely could have kept sleeping, but it then protects that afternoon nap and protects that bedtime. You do need to keep them on schedule. That's the whole point. You're not just letting them sleep whenever they want, but you're letting them get that rest for an hour and then be able to kind of stay on track. The third thing would be to keep a sleep journal. It's basically just writing down your child's sleep habits so that you can track and remember and kind of find consistencies of what might be going on. So if after he sleeps for 2 hours in the morning, he never takes an afternoon nap, you should probably bump that down and try an hour and a half. And then if you try that and same problem, bump it down to an hour. Same thing, maybe just drop the morning nap. There's different things that you can adjust based on what you're seeing, kind of these patterns. So write it down so that you don't have to trust your memory and kind of try to figure out what's going on. That's it. It really is a pretty simple concept. It just takes a lot of tweaking and figuring out, and that's what this whole couple years of life, especially with a baby, are like. There's just a lot going on, a lot of things to be trying to keep track of and figure out. Don't get overwhelmed, just do one thing at a time. If your baby's sleep is struggling, just try to address that. If everyone's rested, it's so much easier to handle anything else that's going on. I do have a how to create a nighttime routine with your kids. I'll link it up here as well as in the description below. But just try to figure it out and get through any of these kind of tough days or nights of just transition. It can just be hard for everybody to figure out what needs to happen now that your baby's getting so big. They're just growing up and trying to find that new sweet spot of what they're gonna need. So, hope this was helpful. If you liked it, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. It really helps my channel. You can subscribe if you're liking these videos, and we'll see you next time.